Welcome back to the Pro Series Podcast. This is episode 103, and today's guest is Lauren Makk. You may know her from TLC, HGTV, Food Network, Disney Plus. The list goes on. She's had a very great career in television. We talk all about that, her background in design, and her new project she's starting on. But before we hop into this episode, please like, subscribe, and review the Pro Series on wherever you listen to podcasts. And now I hope you enjoy episode 103 with Lauren Makk. Lauren, thank you so much for hopping on the Pro Series and making some time to talk with me today. I can't wait to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be here.
Yeah, we did I don't always do a pre-call with guests, but we did one like what it was like a month and a half ago.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And we went on forever, and I felt like we were recording the podcast then, but like we know so much about each other now, it's going to be even more fun to record this episode.
I think so too, Eric. You know, I've been following you on Instagram. That's how we met, and I just love watching your videos and seeing what you do. I mean, it's my kind of content.
Thank you. That's the same way. That's how I found you. I always talk about how I found the guest, and it's from a search, just an Instagram search. It's kind of cool how we could find each other that way because you're in Nashville, I'm in Pittsburgh. We probably never would have really met unless it was for social media.
Totally, I agree with you 100%. I mean, I have so many social media friends that I've never met in real life, but they're like my besties, you know? And I love that about social media. Like you find a niche that you can get into, whether it's thrifting or antiquing or gardening or whatever. And then you just make these friends that you've never really met in person, but you know so much more about them than you know about your real friends even.
Yeah. Let's start in the beginning, like how you got started, and did you go to school for design? Like, how did that all come about? And then we'll get into your TV stuff.
Absolutely. Well, I really always joke that Whitney Houston was born to sing and David Beckham was born to kiss, and Lauren Makk was born to design. And ever since I can remember, it's just been my thing. I have a sitter. We've had a lifelong, sitter turned friend. And she said that when I was a little girl, I would come to her house and I would rearrange her pillows on her bed. And, I've got aunts and stuff that would keep me, and I would be moving their chairs over, moving their sofa a little bit, just bumping it to the right spot. Like, it's just always been my little tick. But going into high school, I went to an art school in Oklahoma City. That's where I'm from. And we had a lot of international exchange students that came to our school. And I fell in love with their culture and kids from Brussels and Belgium and Macedonia and all these places. And they were really big into the street scene, and street art was their thing. So I got into like tagging when I was in high school, and like I was jumping fences with them and hanging out painting trains, and I got into this culture that I had never been exposed to in Oklahoma. So I actually really started out as a graffiti artist. If you really want to go back
Wow.
to the beginning of it, yeah, it's crazy. I loved street art, and I just loved color and patterns and shapes and manipulating forms and stuff into making really cool art. But when it came to college, my plan was to sell my little Honda Accord and travel the world with my, European friends that I had made, making art and street art. And my mom was like, "Girl, you are taking your butt to college. I have worked too hard for too long." So I was like, "Man, how am I going to be able to use my love of art with my, kind of like innate sensibility about space and space planning?" And so I opened a catalog to the nearest college, and in it was interior design. And I was like, all right, fine, let me try this out. I didn't even know interior design was like a thing. I had only watched like Designing Women, you know,
Yeah.
TV. And so went to college, and that was the first day of school. I was like, oh, this is what I was supposed to do. Like, this is what I was meant for, and I loved it. So I never looked back.
That's kind of funny how it's all stemmed from you and your baby, like you rearranging your babysitter's house, and it's kind of like just went into that. You fell into it basically.
I did. I just did. It's just always been my thing. And one of my mom's other famous stories is that when I had this babysitting gig I got when I was 12 years old, and I got like $25 from the babysitting job. And I said, "Mom, will you take me to Home Depot?" And she was like, "What are you doing?" And I ordered a bucket of paint. It was turquoise, just like my shirt, this color. And I spent the whole night watching Honey. Mom, wait, was it Honey, I Shrunk the Kids? Yes. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids on the Disney Channel, painting my room. And my mom woke up the next morning and she was like, wow, like this room looks great. You did a good job. And so she rewarded me by taking me to Macy's and getting me a new bedspread. So
Oh,
it was like, that's just kind of the thing. I've always been a weird
yeah.
kid.
Well, yeah, it's just creative. I feel like all of us creative-minded people kind of start off that way, and they think it's kind of people outside of the creative world kind of think it's strange, but it just makes sense. You're just using your
Exactly.
creative mind.
It's so true. And that's like, I found that that's my therapy, using my hands and doing stuff has just always been kind of my expression of art.
Yeah. So let's go back to your street art part. So back when you were a kid, I mean, nowadays it kind of every city kind of has some like street art on the side of buildings as like a beauty, like they pay
Yeah.
for it. And
Yes.
was it like that back when you were a kid? Because I know like when in my town when I was a kid, it kind of looked down upon to have the street art, but it looked awesome. But people
Right.
outside of our world just thought it was like junk.
Absolutely. And I think at the time I didn't have language for it, right? Being a muralist is what I think that they are now. They're
Yeah.
beautiful murals that cities pay thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars for, depending on the artist and the scale of the painting. And cities now are known for murals. Like Nashville's a big mural city.
Oh yeah.
Um, but it didn't have a name for it back in the early 90s. It was like
Yeah.
street art was the nicest way you could put it. Graffiti was kind of the like, more gritty term for it. And I think that my mom associated being a street artist with having more of a grit and like a less polished version of art. But what I was seeing from my friends that were international, that were from Brussels and Belgium and all of these places that were really familiar with art on a large scale.
Yeah.
Uh, I just didn't have the language to really interpret what that was then. But I think if I could have gone back now, I would have really pursued that because I have such a love of large scale art and really appreciate the culture of that, like how you could, change a community by expressing your art on the side of a building. And they make a lot of money too, by the way.
Oh yeah. But it also ties into interior design because I know so many schools that pay for these artists to come in and just paint big, humongous walls or gymnasiums and stuff with their art.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and you know, corporations like Google and Microsoft and stuff, they pay for some of my now friends to come and paint their buildings, and they're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for that art to commission it.
It's
So
insane.
I think it's a really great way, coming from that street art grit, part of the culture started from graffiti and from painting
Hmm.
trains. And the reason that they painted trains was because it got their art exposed to so many more people crossing the country, and people got to see their names. And this is before the time of social media. So if you think about it, graffiti and trains were like the original like social media. It's like, hey, here's my
That's
name, and it's crossing all these countries.
yeah, it's true, and it had messaging in it like Instagram posts would have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So after school, what was your first job out of school for interior design?
So my first job out of school was so I got an internship with E Networks, and that was a really
Yeah.
cool internship because they were going through a company rebrand, and I got to help that network do its thing, and it was so cool. It really gave me an opportunity to really learn the business of design and how to like process and how to be on a more corporate scale. But my first job was actually designing model homes for a big model home merchandiser in Los Angeles. And
Hmm.
at the time, neighborhoods were being built in a matter of months. They built 150 homes in 20 days. And so it was a great opportunity to really learn how to work from a blueprint before things were actually completed. So I headed a team early on that was really incredible. And I was so grateful to have that experience because it really taught me the process of design without being there necessarily in the space. Um, so that experience was amazing. However, I rose in that company very fast, but then as the pop started, or the bubble started bursting on the housing market, I recognized how quickly I was going to be let go too. And
Mm.
in about 2006 or so, I think it was 6, 7, around in that area, was when the bubble was like at the height of popping. And I said, oh boy, I'm next. My junior designers were getting fired left and right, and I knew that I was on the chopping block because I was a young designer and I didn't have a family that I needed to support and all the things that the other folks who were probably going to get kept would.
Mm-hmm.
So I went in my car and I jumped on my Sidekick phone and had that little swivel,
Yep. I remember
face
that.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got on Craigslist and I typed in interior design and said, where can I get a job? And an opportunity for a TV show came up, and it turned out to be Trading Spaces, which was the
Oh,
biggest show on the biggest
yeah.
network at the time, an Emmy award-winning television show, and I got the job. I couldn't believe it.
Wow. So what was your job on there? So you were one of the designers?
I was one of the designers on Trading Spaces. It was they were doing a reboot, so it was kind of at the end of its height, but it was still an incredible show. And this is before HGTV or any of the DIY networks. This was just TLC. But I got hired as one of the new one of the new designers on the show, and got to work on that show for 3 seasons. So that was a really incredible first time in television job. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you? This is just funny. I just saw this on TikTok the other day. It was like one of the episodes where one of the guests just weren't happy with the design. Did that ever happen to you?
It did not happen to me, thank God. But
Okay.
listen, honestly, nobody remembers the shows that people love. They only remember the dirty, ugly stuff where people would just absolutely hate it. So, thinking big scale, like thinking long
Yeah.
term, I should have had an upset because I would have still been played all over people's TikTok.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's just funny because I just saw it the other day. So
Yeah.
so TLC, you were on that, and then when was the next role? When did HGTV and come about?
So HGTV is a bit more recent. I've been in this
Oh,
business
okay.
now about 17 years. I cannot believe I can say that like that. I feel like an old lady, but at 40, I guess 17 years ain't that far away. uh, so I started really young, but HGTV actually has come about since 2020. I'd
Oh,
always
okay.
wanted to be on the network and had been, really had kind of bounced around through other networks. I did ABC and OWN and A&E, all of the bigger networks, but HGTV has always been my dream.
Okay.
And 2020, a lot of things were happening, and I reached out to the network and I said, "Hey, I'm here. I'd love to do some opportunity. Have any opportunities that you have?" And I got the opportunity to be judge on Design Star, which was a great show.
Yeah. When they brought it back, wasn't it called
Yes,
Next Gen?
Next Gen. Yeah, you have a great memory. That's
Yeah.
right, Design Star Next Gen.
Yeah, I actually had a contestant on my podcast last year.
No
Um,
way. Ooh,
yeah. Oh, jeez. And I forget. I just hit 100 episodes, so like all these
girl or boy?
episodes of people I've talked to have just just gone together.
Yes, I know.
I'll
I know. Which
look.
one? Girl or boy?
I
You
mean,
can edit this
I'll
out.
look. So how was your experience on Next Gen?
Design Star Next Gen was a dream. First of all, to sit in judgment was fabulous. I'm just kidding. No, you know what? It was such an opportunity because, as someone who had always dreamed about, having a career in television and being able to make it, to be able to give that gift to someone else was such a full circle moment.
Oh yeah.
And to be able to watch these people at these young budding designers and come up with these creative ways and creative solutions really was so amazing. That's part of the biggest thing that I love about design is really solving problems. When I come into a space, I think, what is the challenge? How can I overcome the hardest thing in this space? And then I can design around that thing. And so to witness, these young designers do things in such different ways that I would have done, or, whatever, was such a cool way. I just love watching people's brains work.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's my favorite thing about design as well. I am not
Yeah.
finding it right now. I'm probably gonna
Do you
message
know,
you or
girl
text
or
you
boy? Who was
afterwards.
it? It's okay.
What was
Was it a girl or a boy?
it was a boy.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't
Tony
that long.
Algier? Was it Justin Q. Williams? Was
Might
it
have.
Eli Harrington?
Ooh, it was Eli.
I love
I'm almost
Eli.
positive it was Eli.
Yeah, Eli.
Yep.
Eli is one of the best designers I've ever witnessed. He deserves to be at the top of anybody's roster. He is an incredible designer. I love him. He's got such a cool sensibility. He's one of the only straight men in this business.
We talked about it. Yeah. He was on episode 62. Yeah, he was a fun episode.
Eli is such a good dude, man. And honestly, he was neck and neck with another gentleman who was constantly winning all of the challenges. And it's funny, there's this great underdog story in that episode because or that season, I'm sorry. He just him and another person was neck and neck, always winning, constantly, winning all the challenges. And then Carmion Hamilton, a woman, ended up actually taking home the show. But Eli is a talent that is unmatched, and he has the best brain. Like the way his brain thinks
Yeah.
is just beyond me. Yeah,
That's the
good guy.
cool part about that show. I remember back in the day watching it, and all these people were so talented. And wasn't it like whoever the winner was got their own show?
Yes, exactly. They get their own
Okay.
show. They win all kind of cool stuff. But yeah,
Yeah, and I was always disappointed in sometimes like the runner-ups or the top four or top five. They were so talented, but they didn't get a role on a show.
I know it's like, and it's not like American Idol, where in American Idol, the the second person like still gets like a Broadway show.
Yeah,
I know. I feel like we need to do a Where Are They Now?
they sh they
Yeah,
should, and it's
right.
almost kind of like the rock the or maybe do like a rock the block type of thing, but with like past contestants.
I agree. I think so too. And same with the judges too. We need like our own little moment.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, absolutely. So, you said you lived in LA and then you're in Nashville now. Why the move?
Well, I had a baby during the pandemic, and
Okay.
that'll make you move anywhere. Like,
Yeah.
LA, a lot of things changed in Los Angeles, and a lot of our work dried up. And Nashville seemed like the next best solution for me and my family. I wanted my kids to have some space to play, and I wanted to be able to afford, private school. So Nashville, here we come.
Yeah. So you obviously like Nashville. Do you like it better than LA or is it just completely different?
You know, there are pros and cons to every place. I gotta
Yeah.
say, I love Los Angeles for what I needed it for when I needed it for. I lived there during my 20s when I was a single woman, and it was the best place ever. Now as a 40-year-old mom, married mom, like it's Nashville is my vibe now. I still say
Yeah.
it's a big little city. It's got a lot of charm and a lot of character, but it's still a great family like place. And I think this is the city I need for the version of me that lives here.
Absolutely. And I mean, all these shows, is it better to be in LA for these shows or does it really not matter?
Television in general has changed so much. Certainly since since 2020 when the pandemic hit, there are so much more remote opportunities now. Just signing in and doing what we're
Yeah.
doing right now.
Hmm.
And also too, I think that there is such a unique sensibility that comes with being in a small town or being in Pittsburgh or being in Nashville or whatever, that the story is so much greater now if you're not in the big city. I mean, I always say Los Angeles is a big pond, so you can be a big fish but you're still in a big pond. When you're in a smaller place and you've got a more unique story to tell, I think there's a bigger interest for a network or for anything you want to do. I mean, you don't even need a network to be a star these days. You can make so much more money on YouTube or on TikTok or Twitch or any of these other places because you have more creative control over what your story you're telling too.
Oh, absolutely. And that brings up a good point. I want to talk about your YouTube and your new channel and everything. Tell us about that and why you wanted to do it.
Well, I have a passion for DIY, and I love using my hands, and that's my true talent and my sweet spot. Plus, I love teaching people. I love sharing with people how I did something and how I made something or recreated something and my whole process, right? And with television, I got 42 minutes to build a house,
Hmm.
right? And you miss the moments that are the really vital moments that really actually empower the viewer to build something themselves or to do something themselves. And I grew up watching Bob Vila. I grew up watching Bob Ross. I grew up watching Martha Stewart, and I loved sitting there on a Saturday morning and like literally watching them do something, watching their paint dry. Literally, Bob Ross is watching someone's paint dry.
Yeah.
and Bob Vila, watching him, fix something or change something, watching Martha, create a wreath, like those things, those step-by-step processes were so vital to helping me become the woman that I am and the designer that I am, that I wanted to kind of bring it back to that. I wanted to slow things down. I wanted people to like really understand how to do something and make mistakes. Like that's
Hmm.
the fun part, is sometimes I make some mistakes and I'm like, oh, I messed that up. Let's see how we can do it again in a better way. So my YouTube series is basically me slowing the process down, kind of returning to the original formatting of television, where we could watch folks do something step by step, learn how materials work, learn how tools work, and really get our hands dirty in a project, and not just gloss over it with a before and after, a 30
Yeah.
second Instagram post. So that's what it is, and not only am I doing it myself, but I'm also bringing in a celebrity or important person in my life that I want to talk to, and we're watching them make
Mm.
mistakes or learn how to fix a mistake.
That's
So
cool.
very excited about it. And the title of the show is Mama, I Made It. And it's an homage to somebody making it in their personal lives, but also making something that is worthy for the audience to make too at home.
Yeah, I love that. And I like how you said slow it down, because as a someone that works in the industry, shows
Yes.
on TV, nothing bad against them, but their demographic is more people outside the industry, the people that don't really care about the little details. So like this type of slow down of the process kind of allows us, because we kind of want to escape from our job, and that's kind of what the show's showing us, but you're showing us another topic and slowing it down and showing us how to do it, and it just gives you another level of relateness to someone.
It's so true. And like, you know, I love television. I love this career that I've had, but I've perpetuated the myth that everything happens in 30 seconds
Yeah.
and you can do anything if you want to, and that we don't make mistakes. And I feel like part of the process is all about like being okay with making mistakes. I know that as a avid DIYer, like I'm scared to start a project sometimes because I'm like, what if I mess it up? And I feel like the mistakes are where the magic happens. It's also where I learned to do something. I've been in this business for as long as I can remember. And last week I screwed a project up so bad, and my husband was walking by and he was like, "You're not gonna put that in my house, are you?" And I was like, "What should I do with it?" And I peeled all the old varnish off again and put some new stuff down and made a big old mess. But at the end of it, it looked really great, and now I know what to do for the next time. So
Yeah.
I just want to let people know that, like, it's okay to make mistakes. Like, it's okay
Oh
to
yeah.
screw it up. I tell everyone, there's a thin line between do it yourself and screw it yourself. And I toddle that line often.
Oh yeah. So when you go to the show, when for your show and you're doing all these DIY projects, are you doing stuff in your house? Because I know me, I do stuff from my inside my house and I post it, but I'm running out of things to do inside my house. So like it's like content related. Like what else do you put on?
Listen, Eric, you have no idea. It is the bane of my marriage. My husband, my husband was under the impression that the garage was his. Ah, so like, I've taken over the garage with my little setup for my videos. I've taken over the living room sometimes. Like I've taken over our deck and our patio. Like there's always a drop cloth somewhere. He's like has this rule now where I can't spray paint inside the house. He also told me I can't paint anything in here anymore because I'm not the best painter. I mean, I don't know. If I have a solution, I'll let you know. But
Yeah.
I just can't help myself. Like it's my therapy. It really is. It's
Yeah.
my therapy.
I mean, worst work comes to worst, you just buy a new house. You sell this house, buy a new one, start over.
Tell my husband that, will you please? Because I'm like 10 steps away from ripping this kitchen out and doing my own thing. And he's like, hold on a second. Like, you can't do that. But you did it, Eric. And that's why I am empowered.
Oh yeah, if you reface it, it was easy, and it was to me it was fun.
See, that's the other thing though too. Like we have a house that was built in 1996, so it's like the OG track homes that everybody was
Oh
building
yeah.
back in the 90s, and it's a beautiful home. Like when we bought it, someone kind of, did a facelift on the cabinets and stuff. And I was just had a baby, and I was like, just buy the house that I don't have to do anything to. Well, now that we've been here for a couple of years, like, I'm like, oh, they didn't paint these cabinets good. So I can either go in here and strip these cabinets and do a whole thing, or I can just buy new cabinets or rip these out or do whatever I need to do to them. But like fixing them is probably not the best solution because they're just, that compressed board. I want real new cabinets.
Oh yeah.
But in my head, I can take these down and put new ones up.
You
But I don't
probably
know.
could. You probably
I
could.
know.
Just watch a couple videos.
I know I can. It's just like, do I want to do that? And then my husband won't kill me. And it's all.
The issue is like when you're doing the content, I didn't realize this one until I got into the kitchen. It slows down the whole job because you're worried about content. So
Yes.
like camera, tripod, angles, everything. It took me 2 months to do my kitchen, which should only took a week. But I do have a full-time job and I had to worry
Exactly.
about content.
Exactly. I feel the same way. I'm like, if I could do anything, I was telling my girlfriend the other day, I said, I love she's like, you have the best job. You get to DIY all day. And I'm like, yeah, I do. But I also have to capture the content, edit the content, post the content. It's like, it turns into a different project.
Yeah. And it does get expensive if you don't have a brand deal or anything.
It does. Definitely. It's
Yeah.
definitely expensive. It's expensive because I also make a lot of messes and then I have to clean it all up. And it's
Yeah.
expensive, and not just necessarily in the pocket. I have to justify to my husband why I have to do this project right here in the middle of the floor. I
Yeah.
have
As
to
I
pay
get
for
going,
it
I
in
always
kindness.
have add-ons. What was that?
Yeah. I said I have to pay for it in kindness.
Yes.
uh,
Awesome. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for hopping on. I want to finish off on promoting everything. I know we talked about your YouTube, where people could follow you on social media, shows that people could watch on maybe Discovery Plus or Max, or I think it's Max now.
yes, it is Max now. That's true. We've got that. So please check in any of the shows on HGTV or Max, I should say. But yes, please, if you want to just hang out with me on my socials, I'm at Lauren Makk on every platform. And I'm also have this new YouTube series, which I'm excited to launch very soon. But you can still follow and you know get involved early. It's at Mama I Made It on YouTube. So
Awesome. Are
I'd love
you
to
going to
have
be
you.
releasing a new episode like weekly or monthly, or how's that going to work?
I'm working that out, Eric. Jeez, this
Okay.
is a baby of mine. I just want you to follow for now. And then I'll get you there. I will figure it out. We're working on it.
That's a stressful thing to discover because, like, when I started this podcast, I'm like, I'm going to do weekly. And then I'm like, oh, it's a whole nother
Ooh,
breed.
it's a lot. Consistency is key. So I'm just going to give the audience what I can while I can give it. And then, we'll pick up as we can.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for hopping on. I
Yeah.
can't wait to get this out.
Pleasure. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Awesome. Stop.